Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about our next lesson, and I've been like kind of
Uh-huh.
preparing a few things. I don't know whether that's all right with you or
Oh, it's fine, yeah. What'd you have
yeah.
in mind?
Well, like I've kind of like been thinking a lot like since we last had our last lesson. And I've also been kind of analysing like what I've been struggling with, um, and sort of questions that I might have.
Hmm.
What I'm really struggling with at the moment is early game Terran. Like it when I notice they're on one base still. God, I keep getting beat all the time when
Hmm.
they stay on one base and they keep pushing me really on with sort of Marine Marauder. I really struggle to hold it off.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that can be tough. That could definitely be tough. We can kind of talk about that and like what type of builds are you doing? So if they're doing, kind of typically would be like a two racks he's hitting you with. Well, what's kind of the build you're going for against that?
Yeah, I think my build is a bit static. I'm kind of going for like a fast expand and
Sure.
perhaps, and that was another thing I was going to bring on to was the fact that maybe I'm not reading the scouting information well enough.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really frustrating. I've been beaten so many times. I got beaten by oh my god, it was embarrassing almost. I got beaten by he built one Thor, one, right,
Hmm.
and sent his SCVs with a load of Marines the other day and beat me, and I was, oh god, I was so angry.
Yeah, yeah, that used to be a thing too. A lot of Protosses actually were struggled against kind of Thor rushes and proxy Thor rushes, things like that.
Mm.
So
It was really tough to defend though. It really was because I was trying to focus down his SCVs to stop it repairing, and oh, it was horrible.
yeah, it's kind of. I mean, they fixed it a little bit. It used to be really overpowered because uh, I don't know. The SCVs could really start to get behind the Thor, but I think they fixed it to where like if the SCVs are repairing the Thor, you can still attack the. I don't know. They did something that made it a lot easier, but still, if your micro is not on top of it, it can still be pretty tough to deal with. So
Mm.
yeah, it's
I think
not as popular anymore, but yeah, it's still kind of one of those
I,
things.
th- I
Like
think I think what I always find is that when I'm against a Terran who stays on one base, I never seem to have enough units.
yeah.
That's my biggest problem. Like when they pile into my base, I just don't have enough ever, and I always lose my expansion, and I might get a few sentries out and block the ramp, and it just feels like it's delaying the inevitable. Like I can't,
Yeah.
you sound like you know where I'm coming from anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah, no. Because like Protoss, we kind of have to go for some type of fast expand. So even if you know this guy's one basing you, you have to go for that one. Whether you go for a 1 gate expo or like a 3 expo, it has to be some kind of expo build because kind of the alternative is if you just like, well, okay, I know he's one base me, so I'm gonna stay on one base. Then it comes to a point where you just, if he just maybe kind of mirrors you, where he's like, okay, I'll just expand when he expands. You're just not gonna have enough to hold off his one base attack. You need more economy. It's almost like you have to be a Zerg for a little bit, where you have to be bringing in more resources to hold off this strong one base attack.
Mm.
So generally, I will be going for that expand, um, and I'm gonna try to hold my natural as long as I can before I have to sack it. Cause sometimes, when they're doing like a one-on-one or something, he might break your natural, but if you're able to maybe kind of fight tooth and nail for it and hold it for like 5 minutes for maybe to get pushed in your main. Now, obviously, this is worst case scenario. Ideally, you don't want him breaking your natural, but sometimes times are where you just gotta sack your nat, and maybe he's maybe expended too much of his army to try to break you. So,
Mm.
but the important thing is you're holding that base as long as you can. Because I've had games where I've lost my natural, but he spent like 6 minutes trying to break it. So that means I've had that base for maybe like 5 or 6 minutes while he's still on one base. And another key thing to do against the Terran that's one basing is kind of build backstab attacks. Whether you're using a war prism or a proxy pylon on the map, just a couple units, like couple stalkers and a zealot, can really mess with the Terran because they can't really rally as well. They would love to just stream to your base. So if you're doing just little things like that, they either have to keep units at home, or that you're just gonna gut their home economy, and then they're just stuck with this like group they've had, and it just becomes like a waiting game where literally you can just outwait him. Even if you're stuck on one base and you've got him not mining, like that's good for you. So.
Mm, mm.
But
So,
you
so
kind of have to put
mm.
yourself out there.
Maybe it's a psychological thing, but like when I see them fast expanding, I feel like, yeah, I can out macro them, I can.
Hmm.
But when I see them one base, I'm like, oh god, because I kind of think, oh, is it Cloak Banshee? That is the first thing I think, and I know what I need to work on. I need to work on reading Terrans because they're obviously the fact they can wall off and you can't get in a base, and until you get that observer out, it's really difficult to read them if you don't know what you're looking for. Um, so sometimes maybe I over prepare for Cloak Banshees, and then all of a sudden I get, like I say, sort of Marine Marauders. Not that many of them, but just enough to win the game, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, and that's something like it's kind of something that's is good for Terran in the early game. They have a lot of different builds they can do. So kind of the key scouting, obviously, the first key to your scouting is going to be that probe scout. So if you scout at that probe, seeing if he has snagged that first gas or not. Sometimes you can't get that info, and you're not in the base, so that's okay. That happens.
Mm.
But after that first probe scout, using your zealot stalker to poke at him, just to see like, okay, has he expanded? Is he on one base? Do I see a bunker with Marines, or do I see the two racks with Marauders? Just what you see from that little subtle scout there,
Mm.
gonna give you an idea, because you're not. If the Terran's good, you're not just gonna like run up the ramp and see like a factory. If the Terran's good, he's gonna try and hide it. But if you have a Zealot Stalker, he's kind of got to reveal his hand a little bit. So, if you're banging at the door of the Zealot Stalker, he might have to show his Marauder early, and then that seeing a Marauder, limits the totally like what he's doing then, because you can't go two racks and then like click Banshee. It doesn't make sense. You don't have the gas, but so that's going to be like a key tell for two racks, and then you don't have to really worry about your tech. You can delay the robo if you need to. But if let's say you see nothing, you see a ramp with maybe Marines, then you kind of have to lead toward a Cloak Banshee Hellion play before you have more information. So you can kind of, based on what you scout, you can kind of lean your build toward that. But yeah, a lot of good Terrans know you have to respect the Banshee and over
Mm.
prepare for it.
I mean,
So,
at my level at the moment, I've not had much Hellion play at all.
mhm,
In fact, none.
yeah,
Which I'm probably glad about, to be honest with you. But um, and they very rarely fast expand as well. So I mean, I'm only at gold level, so I
sure.
suppose you consider it a low level. But I think what I really want to get out of this, maybe this lesson or future lessons, is I really want to get out of reading, scouting information, and knowing what they can and can't do.
Sure.
Um, because I think I kind of get it. I think, oh, because Terran is so hard to read because you have that limited window
Yeah.
of opportunity. PvP, I get it. I can think, oh well, he's gone 4 gate or he's gone this and Zerg to a certain extent. But with Terran, I really struggle, and I probably over prepare for just about every eventuality when I should probably be able to read it better.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to. And I'm a very safe player, but I know I can't like prepare for. I can put myself in a good position with the amount of information I have available, but I can't like prepare for everything. Like I'm gonna have to take a risk somewhere where it might be, maybe I skip my second observer, or
How
like
precise is it in terms of timings, though? I mean, if you think, oh, I've not seen a Marauder and it's 3 minutes 45 seconds, is it? How precise is it?
oh well, yeah. If I'm scouting with that Zealot Stalker, um, and I don't see a Marauder. I'm gonna lean towards some type of tech play. Very rarely it's gonna be delayed like two racks Marine all in. Very rarely, especially my level. Maybe you'll see more of that at your level where they may just like you think like, oh, he's just teching, but he just pulls like all his workers and has 20 Marines.
Mm.
You might get those every now and then, but when I scout that first Zealot Stalker, I'm pretty much going to find out if it's a 2 Rex or not. Um, I'm usually, if he hasn't expanded, because most of the Terrans that I play are going to go 1 Rax Expo, but you do have some, especially on bigger, like wider maps, maybe like a Daybreak, something like that. They're going to go maybe a little bit more 1 basey, because there's more room to move around in. So I might run into like just a bunker with a Marine, so I kind of have to lean. Now he could be playing a little trick on me, and the smart Terrans might be just 1 Rex expanding behind that. But for the most part, if they're making a bunker at the top of their ramp, I'm leaning towards some type of tech play, and the type of tech plays they're gonna. And we're actually gonna go over this. I just with a lot of my students, kind of what you will see. Like I'm gonna be Terran. I'm going to give you a bunch of different scenarios at certain points in the game, so you can tell me like what do you think this Terran player is doing by what you scout. So
I think that's something I really want to focus on because that seems to be a weakness in my game at the moment.
Sure.
Is I kind of blindly play Terran
hmm
and sort of hope build what I think I should build and maybe overreact to certain things, and I'm terrified of cloak banshees as you are. If you
Oh yeah.
get it's kind of a thing. It's like shit. I need to get my observers out, and then
Oh yeah.
all of a sudden they push with like stim and concussion shells, and you haven't got enough at your front door, and it's. I know what it is, and I'm just not reading it properly, and I'm sure I
Yeah.
can learn it, not pretty quickly. I just need to know the tells, really.
Yeah. Because it's all going to come down to the timings and stuff, and just being comfortable with your tells. Because if I put him on a tech play, I'm not going to be seeing the 2 racks coming out. So I can cross that worry out of my head. So if I see a tech play, my worries are Cloak Banshees, um, yeah, maybe a Hellion Marine Jar. That's a very popular one. You've probably not seen it, but that was a really popular one for a while where basically Terran would get 3 Hellions and a Medevac and 8 Marines, and either drop the Hellions in your base
Mm-hmm.
and then have the Marines attack your naturals simultaneously.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Or they drop the Marines, and then when you run in your probes, your naturally swings the Hellions, and you at this time, you might have like 2 or 3 stalkers at the Sentry, so you have to be really on top of your control, and good pulling your probes. It's great if you can catch the medevac, or you got really nice force fields, but it was really rough because the thing with those tack builds, Terran, if you lose more than like 3 probes, um, you're going to be in a world of hurt when that follow-up attack comes. Because they're just offing you. Because after that, they either go into like Banshee Harass or Cloak Banshee Harass into like a solid heavy 1-1-1. But that's
Oh, sorry,
kind
can
of
I
the
just
thing.
interrupt you there? What
Sure.
does 111 mean?
Okay, yeah, no, and that's, if you ever want to ask about
I keep,
lingo,
I
let me
keep,
know.
I keep hearing it all the time. What I think is it tank banshee sort of marine type play? Is that what it
Yeah,
means?
yeah. Pretty much. And the reason they got the 1-1-1 is because in the build, you use 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport.
Okay, yeah.
So, basically what you said, you producing each of those units, but that's where they kind of get the 1-1-1 from. So, yeah, it's not as potent build anymore, but back when Protoss has really struggled against it, yeah, it was pretty hard to deal with. Um, but yeah, it's still tough, but it's not as like bad as it used to be anymore.
See, at my level, I mean, is it important to be in tune with the kind of current tactics, or isn't it? I mean, is it a case of? I mean, obviously, like the Thor rush that I had the other day, that just, oh my God, it just blew me away.
Yeah, yeah, it's. I mean, it's going to help you. Like, obviously, these guys are going to be executing it perfectly, but I'm sure some of these will try to be mimicking what they're watching. So it's good to kind of know, like, what. Oh, okay, so this guy's trying to do, a Thor rush, or like, oh, okay, he's trying to do a 1-on-1. So you kind of have an idea, like, what he's trying to do, and kind of the response you need to have against it.
Mm. That's
Because
what I
I mean,
mean.
real.
How do you spot a Thor rush? I mean, is it a case of can you detect that like easily or?
Yeah, I mean, it's something to be a little odd. So either gonna proxy that, or I don't know, something's a little odd, like the Hellions haven't hit yet, and the Banshee hasn't. You're just like, what's going on? Then yeah, every now like the last couple times the Thor rush has happened to me, yeah, I've been caught off guard, but usually the maps are big enough, and I really have to just kind of stall a little bit, just get a couple extra units out. But it can be pretty fearful if it catches you completely off guard. But if you see it coming, that's sort of like being active with your first couple units is going to be very important because once you see the Thor rush coming, you just gotta get units out, micro, but just make it awkward. It's kind of like the saying I like to use.
What units though? Zealots, stalkers, sentries? What?
Yeah, I generally want to stay away from the sentries. Zealot Stalker, if you can get Immortal out, great. But if not, just try to get the Zealot Stalkers out, and then just trying to catch catching the maybe the Thor going up a ramp, or just kind of microing it. So if he's like trying to move forward, you're just kind of making it really awkward for him. So he's gonna have a harder time like keeping his SCVs behind there, or you're picking off like stray Marines. Because again, the Thor is gonna be extremely slow, and you just need to buy some time. Also, cannons can be very helpful too, and even against a one-on-one, I was using those a lot. Because the thing with the cannons are, they're very, very kind of stunningly strong, but they buy you time. The cannon isn't really a solution,
Mm-hmm.
but it will buy you like an extra like 2 or 3 minutes. Where if you're on two base and you're tearing opponents on one base and he's pulled half his workers, you're probably mining about 10 to 1100 a minute, while he's mining like 3 to 400 a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can buy yourself an extra like 2 or 3 minutes at your expo,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's gonna be great. That's gonna be extra cycles, the units, more economy. And then again, if he tries to force it, rather than maybe making like 3 to 5 zealots that will instantly die, you might have like 3 to 4 cannons, and he can't really attack into that. And if he does, he's gonna be losing a lot of his army. So sometimes I played around with those, especially if I know the wall one's coming. I'm gonna make a couple cannons as well. It can really buy you time because he's got to like siege up, get vision, and during all that time you can either be massing, maybe rushing your Colossus, or going for a backstab play where you got a warp prism or maybe a proxy pylon in the middle of the map, and you're just like really making it awkward for him, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're trying to like interrupt his rally point, and then he's got to keep units at home, and then he can't reinforce properly on the field. That's really the important thing. Is just
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff like that because the Terran they just think you're going to kind of have tunnel vision and focus on the main army. But again, he can't really move that main army fast if he's trying to like slowly push up. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, just with the Thor rush, it's just going to come down to micro and just making it awkward. They're not really it's not really too scary, but it can be if you lose a couple early units, it kind of snowballs quickly.
I mean, yeah. So it's not a case of like if you. I mean, there's certain plays, isn't it? If you don't scout them, then you cannot stop them. Is it a case of even if you see it late, you can deal with it?
You can. I mean, the later you see it, the more you probably won't be able to. But if you can see it at some, like, as long as you just, like, show up to your natural, maybe you see it, like, maybe at your watchtower or
Mm-hmm.
something, you can kind of gather yourself and kind of maybe make a stand at your ramp. Because, again, if he tries to go up your ramp, that's going to be a little bit harder for his SCVs to get around them.
Mm-hmm.
It can be also a nice little, especially if an Immortal, you can quickly snipe the Thor. Because, he might when trying to work its way up the ramp, the Marines might be behind or in front of the Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in front of the Thor, you can kind of pick at the Marines. If they're behind the Thor is kind of pushing them away. So it's like just probably the Thor up there with maybe 5 or 6 of his.
I think what happened was I was that he was kind of at my natural,
Mhm.
and I was pushing down a ramp with like did have an immortal, and
Yep.
I nearly killed the Thor, but then of course the SCV started repairing it, and then I started focusing down the SCVs trying to kill them, and then all of a sudden the Thor had like took out all of my gateway units near enough, and I just had one immortal left, and there was a couple of SCVs left, and it was just like, oh, it's game over. I can't do anything. It
Yeah.
was so annoying.
Yeah. Until you can get that Thor kill, just be picking at his SCVs, picking at his Marines because again he can just repair it instantly. So if
So
you like
don't
try
so
to
don't even bother shooting the Thor then, basically.
yeah, unless he's like in a precarious position, like he's trying to go up a ramp and you're like, oh, golden opportunity, let me try to kill it. Otherwise, just kill everything else around the Thor.
Okay. I think
It's
that's probably
kind of like
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like the 1-1-1 where it's not really the tanks that kill you. It's just the accumulation of all the other shit, like the Marines and the everything else. If you can like whittle that down, one Thor is not gonna be scary. But if he's got all these like Marines and SCVs with it, and then you try to kind of tunnel vision and focus the Thor, then yeah, it's gonna be bad. But if you're making it really awkward with your stalkers, picking off units, because again, he's not gonna be controlling it that well,
Okay.
especially if you're constantly like
I think
biting in at him.
the thing is me, I'm still learning the game to be fair. I've been
Sure.
playing it six
Oh
months
yeah.
now, and every now and again something will happen, and obviously, a guy like yourself, you've playing it for a long time. You've heard of every single possible cheese or tactic, and every now and again, I'm like, what? A thought this time? What is going on? You just don't see it coming.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's just gonna more games you play, the more these like weird situations. Like I mean, you're never gonna get a good Terran that mechs you, but every 100 games, I'll get a Terran that plays mech against me, and I'll know what I need to do against. Even though I think mech's very bad to do against Protoss.
Is it?
Oh yeah. At least in Wings of Liberty, maybe in Heart of the Swarm it'll be a little more
Well,
viable.
yeah. I mean, what I've done is, obviously since our last lesson, I've kind of put together a few questions for you. Um, and my next question was going to be about Heart of the Swarm. In a sense that, from my perspective at the moment, is Wing of Liberty still worth playing? I mean, do we kind of hold off now until Heart of the Swarm comes out, or?
I think we're still at like a building stage here where it's still going to be extremely beneficial, and you're going to take a lot of these properties from Wings of Liberty to Heart of the Swarm, because really because I've been playing Heart of the Swarm too, and I mean PvT pretty much the same damn thing. I mean there's a couple little things like yeah, mech plays a little more a little more viable now for Terran, but it's pretty much going to be the same meta game in PvT. Um, PvP is going to be a little different, just because DTs.
Hopefully, because it was really bad in Wings of Liberty in the
Oh
summer.
yeah, yeah. It's actually a lot more fun in
It's
Heart
very,
of the
it's very
Swarm.
samey, wasn't it?
Mhm. Like, well, cause like in Wings of Liberty, it was just pretty much there was some variety in the early game, but it pretty much went down to Colossus Wars at the end. So is that kind of like what you remember it as, or just kind of? Because I don't know how the metagame is in the Gold League for
Mm.
PvP, but um,
I think most of them do sort of 3-gate robo or
uh,
4-gate, and it is
mm,
a case of if they do 4-gate, is it fast enough? And if you
yeah,
both do 3-gate robo, who's got the better control and macro? And that's it.
yeah,
I mean, generally I've done all right recently because I've just been going 3-gate robo, staying in my base, and just
mm,
making sure that I out macro them, and making sure that I'm upgrading and I'm doing everything I can, and I'm being really defensive, and
yeah.
then I'll push out, and they've been like trying to harass me and all kinds, and I'll get to the base and they've got nothing compared to
Oh
what
yeah,
I've got, and I know it's at a low level, but that it is a case. That's the way I see it. Is who's the best at macro? It's like a macro challenge, really.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
because like that. Well, I think I was talking about this last lesson. Like, I mean, it's gonna do no good if you're like harassing, and then you go back to your base and you've been supply blocked. You have like 800 minerals in the bank. Your build is just dropped off. It's even though it feels like you're doing nothing, it's much better to be focused on your macro. So while he was trying to do all these like harassing things, you're hitting your pylons, and you're not missing many probes, and you got a good
Mm.
solid army. While he's just kind of it's very unsolid what he's
At
doing.
this level, definitely. I'm
Yeah,
sure, kind of your level, you can do both. But at this level, I think focusing on your own game and
sure.
just making sure it's almost like being defensive seems to work more than
Yeah.
anything.
Well, like I was telling you or some of my other students, at these lower levels, I wouldn't tell you to play a pro build. I would, but caveat that with play it safer.
Hmm.
So at these lower levels, I would want you to get used to these builds. But again, you can't always be going 1 gate expand against Terran. you might need to chrono out that second stalker to make sure you're not getting marine all because it's a lot more popular at your level.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
see.
think
I'm doing
that
one expand every time.
yeah, and you should. And you should, but you have to play it a little bit safer, where you might need to get a couple extra gateway units out before you throw down that expo, or you go something like a 3 gate expand and then expand. I mean 3 gate
Late,
and
though,
then
it feels late. Like I don't like. Maybe it's a
yeah.
psychological thing. I don't like throwing down my expo after them. It feels like I'm behind the second if that happens. Maybe I'm wrong, obviously, but
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. Like I would, I think on most builds you can go 1 gate expo and then get the additional 2 gates pretty quickly. Just maybe in your division you'd use a couple more chrono boosts on your warp gate rather than your probes because I'm typically gonna be super greedy on my probes. But I guess kind of your alteration of the build could be something like you'll use 2 or 3 extra chrono boosts on your warp gate because 2 Raxes are more
mm.
common for gold platinum players. Where in my division 2 Raxes are not really used much because they're not really that good because
That
if you
at your level, but at my level,
oh
usually
yeah, at
I
your level 2 Rexes are extremely scary
yeah.
because these players, I mean,
But I need
they
to
know
know.
how to do.
I need to know how to deal with everything, though, don't I?
Mhm.
I need to go through these levels to know how to deal with it. Even if I got to your level, you still need to how to deal with something that appears in
Oh
a
yeah,
low level, don't you?
oh yeah, because I mean, I'll get hit with a 2 Rex, and if I don't know what I'm doing against, I'll die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm Grandmaster level Terran controlling a 2 Rex build. If I'm not controlling it well, I'm gonna die. I don't think it's as good a build, but it's definitely a viable build, and especially if he gets a couple of my units early on, maybe catches the stalker in the field or something, I'm in trouble. So I'm gonna.
So going back to my point about Heart of the Swarm,
Mhm.
um, when it comes out, should
Yeah.
I abandon Wings of Liberty or should I continue to play it?
Um, I I mean, it's really up to you, but I would probably. Mm, that's kind of a tough call, but I would say maybe yeah, maybe abandon wings,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or at least.
I've not played the PC, you see. I've
Hmm.
not. I mean, kind of deliberately because I know I mean, I know I'm still getting into the game, so I didn't see the point really. Because I'm still learning the control, the micro, all that kind of thing. So I thought, what's the point? And I knew that it's changed all the time. There's been balance problems
Yeah,
with it and stuff.
exactly. That's why I didn't play it for the longest time. Like I had the beta like the day it came out, but I didn't play the beta after the first 2 weeks. It's like everything is constantly changing, and it's
Mm,
just there's just no point to play it. I've been playing it the past month because it's starting to get more set in stone. But again, with Protoss we got a lot of these supplemental units, so you're kind of still playing with the core units. Just you're gonna have like a lot of little fun tools to play with once you get to Heart of the Swarm, like the oracles,
well, it
which you know.
seems like I mean, from what I've seen, like, I watched a few White Raw replays recently. A lot of air play, a lot of Stargate play.
Yeah, they've buffed our Stargate, that's for sure. Because I think in Wings we don't really have a viable Stargate tech. At least in the early game it can be viable, but after that, Void Rays drop off horribly. Phoenixes are generally they're so expensive that they don't really pay for themselves, and it takes a long time to accumulate lifts. Carriers take forever to make, and they're
Carriers are
still
good now, aren't they? They went out and come back again, haven't they?
yeah. I mean, they were always pretty decent. I don't know if they like buffed them in Heart of the Swarm or did I think they did something with their AI, but carriers have always been good. It's just they're really expensive and they take so long to get. So like it's just getting them safely and a good number of them um, is hard. But once you get them, they're nice air units.
Mm.
Um, I'm trying to
Eh,
think if they've done anything to them other than buff their AI.
have they given them a bit of a buff then? Because in Wings of Liberty they were generally non-existent, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a
So
shame because they're such a clever unit in a way, especially in Brood War.
yeah, oh yeah, they were great in Brood War. You could micro with them, but here they they took out that micro mechanic. I think I want to say I think they added it back in at least somewhat because back in Brood War you could micro your carrier, you could like, micro your carrier away and it still attack. In StarCraft 2, the moment you moved your carrier, all the interceptors went in.
Right.
They didn't stay
I mean,
out, so you didn't get.
I don't think I've even built one in Wings of Liberty just because of from every single bit of advice I've ever had is to stay away from them.
Yeah, they're generally only viable against Zerg. Against Terran, no, because everything they have counters air. Like even Marines, like if you have
Yeah.
carry, like he could just if he has a pack of Marines, he can just kill the interceptors or just
Which
like
is a
walk up.
shame, isn't it, really? I mean,
Yeah,
why should they be that weak? I mean, you can say the same about, what are they called? Battle cruisers for Terran as well. They're pretty weak as well, aren't they?
they are in single numbers, so they can be. But I feel a carrier. I don't know. There's just something about it where if he has like 9 Marines and you have one carrier, like I mean you're gonna lose that carrier very quickly. So
Mm.
it's kind of unfortunate that a tier 1 unit can own it so bad. But I guess coupled with Storm and stuff can be very nice. It generally was something you'd get against Zerg,
Mm.
just because their abuse with like Broodlords. You could tech up, but the thing is, it takes so long to get that Stargate army, so it's very you usually die in the transition of changing your tech between like Gateway going into like a Stargate tech. But what they've done in Heart of the Swarm is they've made the Void Ray really good.
Have they?
Um,
Have they juiced it a bit? Have they give it a bit of a buff? Have they?
yeah, yep. Basically, now you can turn on the charge, and it
Okay.
lasts for a period of time. I think it's like 30 seconds. But again, you can turn it on, so it's actually it's like Void Ray Stim, but it doesn't do damage. But yeah, you turn off the charge, and then there's a cooldown after that, like a 30-second or a minute cooldown. But yeah, it makes it to where you can actually go into the battle with that rather than trying to get your Void Ray to charge on something, because by the time it charges, either the battle's been decided or the Void Ray dies. And that's why the Void Rays are not really that viable. Plus, they were so expensive. But now, they're actually very nice units to have.
Mm.
Um, so
I
that's
hope that I hope that the Robo's not going to be forgotten about because of all this, especially it seems like that on the videos I've seen, but then maybe it's just because they're trying to exploit it.
yeah. I mean, I think I haven't really figured out Sky Toss yet, but I've been kind of relying a lot, just kind of going back to basics, kind of like the Wings of Liberty builds, like against Zerg. Like I saw like a lot of people trying to make Sky Toss work, but I can't make it work for whatever reason. It seems like whenever I make Tempest, I die, or it's just kind of weird to kind of find the right transition. So I usually just like Wings of Liberty style, and then try to add the air in. So maybe go that kind of like Stalker Colossus ball you normally would sing in Wings against Zerg, and then from there, I'll try to
Those
squeeze in a transition or something like that.
swarm hosts seem very strong.
Yeah, they can be. So you're gonna either need Colossus or the Void Ray again. It's such a nice.
Just the way they
Well,
can burrow as well. It's like seeing certain games where it's like, how do you stop that? It seems impossible. They'll be camped
yeah,
in the middle of the map, burrowed, and attacking expansion after expansion after expansion, and you think, how can you get near that? They're kind of limiting expansions as well, so they're stopping like Terrans or whatever expanding,
yeah,
and
yeah. It's tough.
they seem
It,
devastating and they seem
it's tough.
imbalanced. But then I don't know. Maybe I'm.
It's, I mean, they did initially. I don't know. Like, it definitely is imbalanced. It feels imbalanced if you don't have the correct unit to deal with it. So if you don't have Colossi, and he just keeps dumping locusts into you, I mean, you're gonna wear down eventually. Or if you don't have Void Rays, which a lot of times, sometimes when they do go swarmers, they'll either bring their queens or hydras. So it's kind of hard sometimes to get the
That's what I'm
Void Rays.
saying. So even I mean, you need vision as well. You need if they're burrowed, you need observers as well. So it's quite a lot to take them out.
Yeah, it is. And some Zergs have been pretty keen on maybe keeping an overseer by all their swarm hosts, and they have like the queen snipe the obs. And then again, you can do um the Oracle does have that vision where you
Does
can
it?
kind of. Yep. So that's why it's kind
Does
of
Oracle have detection? Does it?
it does it does.
Oh,
So
that's
that's why
cool.
it's kind of cool in PvP. It's opened up a lot more possibilities. So if you do open up Stargate, and let's say DT start attacking you, you can quickly chrono out an Oracle. And you
Okay.
can like so it's kind of cool. It opens some more different build possibilities in PvP.
Mm.
But yeah, you can do that in PvZ. But again, my kind of solution is Swarm Host. If they do get a good position, is just go around them.
Mm-hmm.
Treat it like Terran Mac and just avoid it and go base race. Because I mean, you know, it's whatever. He can siege my third or whatever. I'm just gonna go kill your base now. So he's gonna have to pick up and go home, and that can be pretty problematic. So it's kind of like the same concept I was talking about the 1-1-1. Try to do some sort of backstab where he's not defended.
Mm.
So you don't want to be
I don't
going.
know. I don't know if we got time for it, but I sent you a replay. I don't know if you've got it on
Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah. Let me get this. Sorry, I didn't see.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just it's a game I lost to Terran. I don't think it lasted that long, so
Okay, sure.
if you don't mind loading it up, and you might have a look at it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
I just remember I bookmarked it, thinking, oh, I want to ask him about this one because I don't know how I lost it.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, and Terran's gonna be extremely strong in the early to mid game, so that's kind of like when a Terran player should be making their moves and stuff.
hmm I'm not, to be honest, I can't remember. I bookmarked it. There must be a reason why. I played quite a lot tonight. I'm doing okay though. I'm winning more than I'm losing.
That's good. That's good. And just
Um,
playing, getting that experience, it's gonna be good.
I'm trying to learn probably too fast though. Like I'm reading so much and I'm watching so much and um, sometimes I get a bit like overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like trying to do too much.
Yeah, like I mean, that's all good. You can like soak in all that knowledge, but I would say in your gameplay, just try to stick with one build.
Mm.
Just try to keep grounded in the one build you want to work on, and then once you feel you have it mastered, and I would say maybe once you're getting like platinum or even high plat,
Mm.
you can maybe start branching off and adding certain builds. But I would, even though you're taking all this knowledge, I try to stick with one solid build you use so you get a kind of a comfort zone with it.
I think it's not even that. I've been watching quite a lot of Day Nine,
Okay, yeah, that's good.
um, and watching his videos on like mechanics and tapping and stuff like that, and where you're like constantly checking if you're building this, if you're building that. What's your opinion on his stuff? Do you think it's all relevant, or do you think some of it's?
Oh, I mean, I think sometimes, I mean, I think you're not gonna get bad watching Day Nine stuff, and I think he's a really good player and a very smart player. Um, but try not to, I don't know, like some of the stuff he does is pretty tedious, and it might not be something I would want you worrying at your certain point. So maybe like, even though it's good to maybe constantly be checking everything, I don't want you to get like overwhelmed by that either.
That's what I mean. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Like constantly checking if you're building probes, constantly checking
Yeah,
if you're doing this. And I understand it. If you could do that to the level that he's trying to get you to do it at, you'd be Korean standard. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it's like, whoa, it's hard to do that and also do a build and also scout and also tech and
yeah. What I would say like when you're trying to improve is try to have a focus in the game. So, or like one improvement area. So rather than like trying to think of all these things you need to remember, just maybe for your like improvement for this certain game, try not to get supply blocked in the first, I don't know, like 8 to 10 minutes. Make
Mm,
that your goal, and then maybe after that, watch the replay and see the times you got supply blocked. Or maybe try to make constant worker production, and then see the times where you're skipping workers. If it's like if it's maybe a certain supply or maybe when certain things are happening in the game. So you can kind of pinpoint that and kind of in your mind, you're like, oh, this is the time when I get supply blocked around like 32. I need to be on top of my pylons, things like that. So
mm.
I would make one general thing your focus in a game, um, well, at least one major thing. Because if you're trying to think of all these other things, you're just gonna get overwhelmed, and you're not gonna. I don't feel you're gonna improve as quickly.
Mm.
So I would just try to make that a focus. And again, like Dana is really really good, very smart player, and knowledgeable about all the races. But again, some of his stuff is maybe a little bit kind of for the higher level players, or it's just pretty tedious and just
Mm.
kind of like he's putting too much stress into this kind
He's
of.
very analytical and he really does look very, very deep. And at my level at the moment, I think I need to learn the basics, the core stuff. And sometimes I think that maybe it's a bit over the top.
Yeah, yeah. We gotta walk before we can run.